My name is Kim Swift. I am a game design director for Stadia Games and Entertainment, and this is Creating for Creators. So as part of my job, I'm actually working in the publishing side of things in Stadia, and I get questions all the time about how do we actually create compelling games that appeal to content creators. So I decided to put together this deck. So if you have ever wanted to know more about game live streaming and videos on demand, want to understand more about the culture and community around gaming outside the content of games, are interested in creating games that will appeal to content creators in general, and are also curious about creating games that will engage live streaming audiences and ask for participation, this talk is for you. So the goals of this presentation is to provide, first off, a base level understanding of live streams and VODs, what are the difference, and get into the minds of content creators and their audiences. Why do content creators create? Why do people watch? So if we understand more about the context and motivations of creators and their audiences, we can better make informed decisions about our games. So I'm going to cover 4 categories of topics: Content Creation 101, live stream and VOD audiences, designing for content creators, and finally, covering some Stadia exclusive features that we're really excited about. So when I talk about content, we tend to, in our minds as devs, think about content is just the game content itself. Like, hey, these are the skins and mods and models for our game. But really, the definition of content has expanded over the last several years. So in the context of this presentation, when I refer to content, I'm really talking about live streams and VODs. So let's go into some basics here. This might seem kind of patently obvious, but hey, I've gotten questions on it, so I'll cover this really quickly. So what are live streams? In live streams, people are playing your video game live and putting it on various platforms like Twitch, Mixer, or YouTube Live, professionally or for fun. Streaming has grown immensely as a business over the last decade or so. It originally got its start in early 2007 with Justin TV, which later became Twitch. And now there are several streaming platforms and millions of broadcasters. On the flip side, however, you have video on demand, or VODs, which is pre-recorded content that's uploaded to platforms like YouTube and Vimeo. The democratization of video on demand started with YouTube in 2005. And though uploaded gaming content began almost immediately as soon as YouTube went up, what we really consider as video game content on YouTube really kind of got rolling in 2008 with Call of Duty 4. So as I previously talked about, with live streams and VODs, some code names for what you might hear content creators in each of these formats are as follows. Live streams, you're looking at live streamers, streamers, broadcasters. And then for VODs, YouTube creators, YouTubers, that's basically what you're going to hear. So here's some interesting data. So when you look at live stream platforms, overall, here's the breakdown of popularity of each. So right now, Twitch for live stream is leading the pack, followed by YouTube. Now, in contrast, however, if you take a look at all of the gaming hours consumed on live stream versus VOD content, this is sort of where we're at. So 17% of that content across all platforms is live, and 83% is VOD. So you're looking at 15.3 billion for live stream and 74.7 billion for VOD. So VODs is a huge business. I know we focus a lot on live stream as game developers because it makes, I guess, the most sense to us, right? We are used to inputting something into our games and getting a live response. And so I think we grok live stream better. But at the end of the day, VOD is a bigger business. So if I am a content creator, here are some of the types of services that I'm going to use basically outside of my platform, and some of the things that I'm going to be paying attention to. So for both live stream and VOD, a community is really important, using Twitter, Discord as means to communicate when you're going live, or what types of things you're going to see in terms of content from that creator, and Also, just keeping in touch with community. Those are really important tools. And then additionally, branding is also very important to all content creators. They very frequently will work with other services to do their emojis, emotes, and other art assets for their streams and videos. So for streaming specifically, when they are trying to get ready for a stream, OBS is kind of the go-to software here, or Streamlabs OBS, which is another version of that. It's free, so if you're ever curious about getting into live streaming, I would actually recommend downloading it and playing around with it. And then also as well for live stream, you're worried about creating alerts too as well. So you want to create these custom alerts and pop-ups when people make donations or follow the stream. Then for VODs, editing obviously is very important. So using tools like iMovie, Premiere, and Final Cut to create these videos and then posting them to YouTube. And then again, for both live stream and VOD, monetization is important, being able to accept donations through things like PayPal and Patreon to receive direct payment from their viewers. And then on the platform specifically, there are things like paid memberships, premium currencies like Twitch Bits, or paid chat functions like YouTube Super Chat and stickers. So why do content creators create content? I've found that it tends to fall into 6 buckets, and sometimes these buckets overlap. So for some, it's wanting to improve their personal skills and be more entertaining overall. Hey, sometimes people are scary, right? And so being able to talk to a monitor instead of directly to a person kind of obfuscates some of that insecurity for folks. And so they actually find that either live streaming or VODs are a great way for them to improve their interpersonal skills. Some folks want to teach and make sure that people are having fun with their favorite games. Content creators are super aware that if people don't play and love the games that they love, those games might go away, especially if they're games of a service game. Then also, hey, earning money playing video games is the dream, right? I've seen how much some broadcasters make, and man, it makes me question my life choices. Then some folks want to show off their skills to an audience. They love to peacock and be able to show off that they can do this particular jump trick shot better than anyone else can. And a lot of times that actually combines with the joy of wanting to teach people how to do these things too as well. And then some folks want to make friends doing the same thing that they love to do. And so they got into streaming or creating YouTube videos to find people that love their common interests. And then finally, some folks just really love to build a strong community, sort of where they're at the center and bringing other folks together around the content that they create. So when you're taking a look at the types of content creators out there, at the end of the day, it really comes down to 2 extremely broad categories, right? One is personality and one is skill. And obviously for many content creators out there, these particular categories overlap. So when you think of a content creator with personality, you can think of someone that maybe does a lot of videos where there's jump scares and they scream really loud and it's really easy to get into them and watch them emote. And then for skill, a lot of these folks are esports players. How creators select games is a really important factor when thinking about what types of content you're going to be creating for creators. I'm going to go over a few broad categories of how content creators think about what games that they want to play either on live stream or VODs. So first off, audience profile is a really important thing to pay attention to, especially if you've got a game and you're like, I want, live streamers to take a look at this game. Pay attention to what types of games they normally stream or what types of VODs they create, because these folks very carefully curate the audience to be in tune with what they want to make. So for instance, someone that is used to creating VODs for, say, a first-person shooter, if all of a sudden out of the blue, they start playing games like, say, Journey that are really peaceful and serene, their audience is going to be really confused and they might potentially turn off an audience member in the future. And hey, for content creators, their audience is how they create money. So another factor is strategic timing. So additionally, choosing a game to play at the absolute right moment can be a major slingshot to a career. Looking at games that are projected to have a potential huge following in the future, or have a specific entertainment draw, are things that a content creator is going to look at. So an example of this, we all know Ninja, right? Ninja got his career initially as a professional gamer in esports, playing Halo 3, actually. And so for him, he kind of got started on YouTube and Twitch, really going and being a creator in 2011, and he did pretty good, and mostly got into playing Battle Royale games after his time with Halo 3. And so he really emerged with H1Z1 King of the Kill, and then super made his big break with Fortnite, as we're all aware of. So he skyrocketed to fame in 2018, going from 500K followers to over 2 million in just 6 months on Twitch, and over 22 million subscribers on YouTube. So that was finding a game and getting onto that game at the exact right moment to ride the crest of a wave. So another motivation is wanting to pick games that are high energy and competitive. This tends to play super well in live stream. Games that are competitive and skill-based allow a content creator to peacock those skills and then really get into the gameplay and emote, and it's easy to kind of get into the content and create exciting entertainment. Another category is looking at games that provide shock and awe. Again, things with surprises and jump scares like horror games make for interesting reactions that's easy for an audience member to get into. Folks that tune into that type of thing want to see hilarious and over-the-top reactions. An example of this is Markiplier. So he primarily is on YouTube, got started in 2012. He's a huge YouTube creator, got going playing games like Amnesia and other horror games. And his popularity really grew with this genre of game, and in particular, Five Nights at Freddy's in 2014. His extreme reactions and jump scares in the game, what really sort of started his following. A few years later, his videos went from just like a handful of views to millions. He's even gotten into actually creating his own style of games too as well, with content like The Heist. So another is community builders. A lot of content creators are going to look at games that are something that they can play with their community. And so what you need for that is a game that has a broad variety of things to do and is accessible. So someone that maybe isn't as good at a first-person shooter can still maybe get into the co-op content of a game like, say, Destiny 2. Then there's Hypetrain. Content creators are obviously going to select popular titles that either exist already, like WoW and Dota, or try to launch their viewership, again, spotting that opportunity and get into games that are up and coming. So, for instance, the Pokemon games that came out in 2019 were incredibly popular on Twitch and YouTube when they first came out. An example of this for Overwatch is this guy, MoonMoon. He is primarily on Twitch, got started exactly in 2016 because he was a big Blizzard fanboy and saw Overwatch, got really, really excited about Overwatch, and actually started streaming because of this game. So when he was one of the first players that really got good at the game, he was fun and interesting to watch, and it basically skyrocketed him almost immediately on the back of Overwatch. So about a year or so ago, he actually went from being full-time Overwatch streamer to switching to variety. As I said before, broadcasters and VOD creators need to be careful about losing their audience members. And so for him, he felt like he had reached a point in his live stream career where he could take that risk and broaden his scope to variety of games. And he's still doing very well. So another interesting one to pay attention to is, just like us, content creators play together with their friends. And a lot of times those happen to be other content creators, right? So they frequently migrate through games as a group. Here's an example of that. I call this the Great Battle Royale Migration of 2017. So let's take a look at H1Z1 King of the Kill. In early 2016, the game is created by Daybreak as a riff on the DayZ mod. And they basically split it into two types of games, one of which was a Battle Royale game. Everyone who was playing things like CSGO took a look at it as a fresh and exciting, interesting thing to go and play. So this picture right here is actually something I took while I was helping to run an event while I was working on the Twitch Prime team called King of the Kappa. So all of these streamers actually went through this migration themselves. So the next game on that list is PUBG. Again, early 2017, H1Z1 King of the Kill, this is something to pay attention to as devs, we're not responding sort of fast enough to the content creators' needs and wants, even just in terms of fixing bugs. And so when they saw another competitor on the horizon with PUBG, everybody sort of switched over. And then again, the same thing happened with Fortnite in late 2017, attracted by the twist of the building that Fortnite has. People jumped from PUBG to Fortnite. And one of the reasons why Fortnite has sort of been hanging on for quite a while in comparison to some of these other games in terms of popularity is because of how fast they respond to community feedback and constantly having interesting events and things to do. And then the new hotness now seems to be Escape from Tarkov, and people are kind of migrating from Fortnite slowly but surely to this game, which this sort of kind of took place in late 2019. Even though the game's been around for a few years, again, people were looking for something new and fresh that was still sort of in the boundaries of this genre. And if you take a look at Escape from Tarkov and Fortnite, they're basically polar opposite games. So again, looking for something fresh and different. And they all kind of go together. And then finally, sponsored title. Hey, I got paid to do this, right? Most larger titles are gonna contract streamers or VOD creators to play during their launch window. This is pretty common. Keynote that if you are looking to do this, making sure that you have clearance on that this is a sponsored title. So having somewhere in the video or in the title of the video or live stream is super important so you don't get in trouble with the law. So let's talk creator economics. First off, what are the KPIs, key performance indicators, for all you acronym fans out there, for VOD creators? First off, subscriptions. This is the amount of people that are following and tracking a VOD creator's channel. I'm talking specifically about YouTube here. These are free for this service. Then there's views. So views are the number of folks that have watched a particular video. A successful number of views is, let's say it's about 14%. So if they have 100,000 followers, then success is maybe about 12 to 15,000 views on each one of these videos. Then there's engagement. So viewer comments are important things to pay attention to. The expectation is that content creators should maybe have like about a 0.5% engagement rate. So again, for that 100,000 followers, about 500 comments on that video is considered sort of like, this is a baseline, I'm doing pretty good. Then finally, paid memberships. Viewers can pay a monthly fee to their favorite creator. The service takes a cut of this revenue. YouTube Gaming, I believe, requires about 1,000 followers in order to activate this particular monetization. And I could be wrong, and I might get in trouble, but hey, we'll find out. And then on the flip side, for streaming KPIs, for people that are live streaming, followers and subs are very important. Okay, so here is an interesting detail. On YouTube, subscriptions are free. On Twitch, subscriptions are actually a paid membership. So being able to track, again, people following for free this particular live content creator is a good way to start. Then concurrencies for live streams. So the number of viewers that are watching a broadcaster at any given amount of time. So generally you're gonna look at the peak and average concurrencies of people watching that live stream. And then finally, paid memberships. Viewers can pay a monthly fee on all of the streaming services to their favorite broadcasters. It's a major indicator of how a broadcaster is doing and is a way for them to determine whether or not this could maybe be something they can do for their, first and primary job, right? Again, the service takes a cut of this revenue. For YouTube, the benefits are for their entire channel, both VOD and live. So how do creators make money knowing that these are the KPIs? So obviously from viewers. Depending on the platform, viewers can contribute to a creator's revenue in a number of ways: paid memberships, tips, or premium currencies. Then there's ad revenue. Creators can run ads or banner displays in both their stream and videos, pre and mid-roll, and get a small amount for their impressions there. And then finally, sponsorships. Content creators can be paid to stream or create videos for particular titles or products, and creators are also paid for going to sponsored events. So we've talked a bit about the creators themselves. Let's talk about the audiences that watch this content. So why do folks watch VODs and live streams of their favorite games? Well, here are 6 reasons. First, wanting to make friends that have the same tastes as them. I actually have a friend of mine who is in his late 50s and none of his other friends play video games. And so when he wants to talk about the new game that he's playing, he actually turns to Twitch and YouTube audiences and following along with his favorite content creators and talking with their communities when he wants to say how much he loves this thing, right? Another reason is love being a part of a community. I know this is what really got me into watching Twitch and YouTube. I love feeling like I'm a part of things. And I think we tend to underestimate just how important internet friendships are to people, and that they're just as important to our audiences as their real life friendships. And then another reason is wanting to learn more about the games that they don't necessarily have time to play, but they want to keep up with what's going on, because FOMO, right? I do this all the time. Sometimes there's a game where I'm like, yeah, I don't really have time to hit my head against the wall on this really, really hard game, so I'm going to watch someone better than me play it. Another reason is wanting to learn and improve skills by observing. This is really popular with esports games, so I'm going to watch this Dota streamer or YouTuber to find out what's happening with the latest meta and what are the strats that people are playing around with right now. I want to check out games before I invest in buying. This is incredibly common. A lot of our gaming audience members are feeling a little disenfranchised when we put up these really beautifully rendered videos that don't necessarily reflect the game content that they're going to play through. And so they turn to somebody actually playing the game to see what it's like. And then finally, I really identify with this broadcaster or VOD creator because I love their personality. Even though I know they're not my friend, I feel like they're my friend, or maybe they could be my friend. And so I'm going to get really, really into this creator. Another thing to think about too as well, so this is how YouTube actually thinks about their VOD content and the types of categories and things that people like to watch. So first off, there's competitive, obviously, skill-based. So people are going to get into this type of content, again, because they want to learn by watching. Another category is Let's Play. And folks like to tune into these types of, I'm going to play from the beginning to the end of this particular game because they want to know how to accomplish something or just sort of to see the length and breadth of the game. Then there's Sandbox, which is, things like, say, Roblox or Minecraft. They say that it's narrative-based, but really what that means is that I want to be immersed in a world with a person I love to watch and sort of see what types of stories that are going to come out by this person interacting with the game. And then finally, Reaction. These tend to be humor and horror games. So people are going to get into watching these types of content because they're just fun and funny, and they want to get into the lulz, right? So that's why audiences watch. So why do audiences pay money for this type of content? First off, being supportive. Viewers look at paying their favorite creators like paying for service like, say, Netflix. The way they see it, content's content, right? And they should support the content that they like, so that way it'll continue. Then there's community. So things like gifting is actually extremely popular in VOD stream culture. People want to share and grow the community around their favorite content creators, again, because they love this content, they love the creator, and so they want to be supportive and bring more people into the fold. And then finally, this is more important than you would think, but exclusive features is a way for people to really get into a content creator. So collecting emotes, emojis, special features, believe it or not, super important. It's a huge part of the culture. People love to show off the ones that they have that maybe someone else hasn't seen. I liken this to being a little kid and loving stickers and sticker books, and you would just want to like collect and fill them up and then like trade them with other people. And I don't know, it has the same feel to me. So now that we set the ground level of understanding of content creators and their audiences, how do we design for these creators and their audiences? So one important success indicator is readability. And to be honest, this is a really important success feature for a lot of us creating games. So in a game scene, it's particularly important to live stream, I would say. So folks that are just tuning in should be able to quickly understand at a glance what's going on, at least at the highest level. And then hopefully the game has depth that if the audience members want to ask more about, hey, how did you do this one thing? Or, hey, what's that over there? It doesn't make it so the broadcaster has to kind of explain what the game is over and over and over again. So a really great example of this is football/soccer, depending on where you're at. So let's pretend you are an alien and you came to Earth and you watched a soccer game for the first time and you're like, oh, hey, I think I actually kind of know what's going on. You've got like two sort of teams in these costumes and they're wearing the same costumes. So yeah, they must be on the same team together. And they seem to be kicking this ball around. And oh, hey, it looks like there's like two goals here that they're trying to get the ball in. Cool. I get the base understanding of how this game works. And obviously the game has depths. There's all of the different players, there's the different positions, there's all of the stats going on. And so this allows, again, people to get into the game, understand what's going on. If they're in a soccer game, they can get into the action, and then provides depth to think about how the game operates later on. Another important success indicator is excitement. Moments of surprise and excitement not only delight your players, but the folks that are watching too as well. Viewers are going to want to root for their favorite creator when they're doing really well, and then maybe like have a little bit of schadenfreude when they're not doing so well, or empathize and be like, oh man, that sucks. But these exciting in-game moments make it easy for content creators to really be entertaining, right? Like we're doing some of the work for them. And so they don't have to try to like really make up or think hard about how to make this particular stream or VOD exciting. A good example of this are most multiplayer first-person shooters or other competitive games. Watching a content creator play a super intense match of, say, CSGO is entertaining with lots of PvP and these dynamic moments that are coming about from the interactions between the players and the mechanics of the game. Another important one where that sort of excitement is super, super important for live stream. I would say creativity is more important for VOD. And it's a high priority for VOD creators. Allowing creators to express themselves within the game is not only rewarding for them, but it's something that the audience can get engaged and chat about, either in comments or in a live stream chat. Creating something and trying new experimental things is an easy way to create content for an audience. A great, perfect example of this is Minecraft. It's evergreen in the realm of creativity and expression. Its broad sandbox capabilities allow folks to really express themselves in multiple ways. The game has remained steadily in the top 15 on both Twitch and YouTube after a decade, which, if you think about internet time, is a really, really long time. Another important factor is pacing. So just as excitement is really, really important, downtime is actually equally as important, particularly if you're talking about live stream. So when a streamer is playing a particularly intense moment, they're not really going to be checking or reading chat, and so they're not going to be responding. When a game has a break in the action, and really this can be as simple as like a lobby in a multiplayer game, they have a chance to take a minute, look at chat, talk about, hey, this is maybe what I'm going to do next in the game, respond to questions, and shout out to new donations or followers. An example of this is, say, GTA Online or Red Dead Online. They're a good example of pacing because if you watch, say, a session of about 4 hours of someone playing Red Dead Online, you can see all of these sort of high and low moments. So high moments when you come across another player and you have a PvP shootout. And then lower moments when you're just sort of like riding around on your horse and talking to your audience. Having this sort of ebb and flow of pacing is really important. And something to keep in mind for live stream too as well is these folks are talking for 4 hours basically at the minimum and are doing sort of multiple 4-hour sessions throughout their day. And so if they're always on like high level excitement, it's going to get tiring pretty quickly, right? Another important factor is variety. Just like players, sometimes viewers get a little bored of seeing the same thing over and over and over again. Having variety of things that a content creator can do within the scope of one game will likely keep them engaged in your game for longer. Creators tend to pick maybe 1 or 2 games to play predominantly sort of as their staple games. You increase the likelihood of being one of these staples if there's lots of different modalities that you can play within your game. So a clear example of this are MMOs. So I'm using Elder Scrolls Online because I play that sometimes. But any massively multiplayer online game really are great examples because, you've got things like crafting or housing. You can go experience a single player storyline or have an exciting PvP match. So I talked about these staple games, right? So how do I create a game that is not just a 5-minute wonder of something that people play once and then, maybe not stream it or create VODs for it anymore, and to become a content staple? So I'm actually taking this slide from one of Raf Koster's blog posts, which I think kind of demonstrates it really well, and it's easy to grok. So first off, steady content trickle. Is there a reason for players to want to come back and check to see if there's something new in your game? Something to note here is that content doesn't necessarily have to be made by us as devs. This could also be UGC content too as well. Then there's persistent profile investment. So I feel personally invested in this game because I've spent money, I've spent time, I've built friendships. I don't just want to stop playing this game because I really feel like I've put a piece of myself into it. Then there's in-world investment. So this is like persistent profile investment, but with other players. So think of this as we've put a lot of effort as a community into, say, this Minecraft server. And so I'm less likely to walk away because here I've created this landmark and something that I can go to within the game with my friends. Then there's social connections. This should be fairly obvious. My friends play this game. I want to keep playing this game because that's how I get to hang out with my friends. Then there's economic play. So this can be real world currency or not so real world currency like gold or silver or whatever we sort of make up as a code name for our in-game currencies. Then there's extreme game depth. So think of this as games like, say, again, MOBAs or card games where the meta is sort of changing all the time. There's lots of characters and stats to memorize, and sort of lots of permutations to play around with for success. Then PvP competition, fairly obvious. And again, user creativity. Again, I think this really plays well into VOD creation. Then there's story. I want to keep playing this game because I want to find out what's going to happen to the characters next. Again, within the context of content creation, the story can be my own personal story as a content creator going through this game and having these experiences. And then finally, emergent play. So this is having lots of different mechanics that are permutable with one another to create things that maybe players might not expect. So you want to make a game that appeals to content creators. I'm asking you to do this first and foremost. Make a good game, which is hard enough as it is, right? So content creators are just gamers that make money playing games. If your game is not fun, engaging, and interesting, content creators won't play. And before designing features just for content creators or their audiences, make sure the game is good for all of your players first. So it's easy to get caught up wanting to focus on just the content creators, right? Because they have millions of followers and they're able to get data out about your game. And hey, this is great marketing, and we can kind of get in our own heads about it, right? But you have to take a look at your overall player funnel first, right? So you start off with a particular funnel for your game, depending on what genre you have, who your target demographic is, etc. So you've already shrunk your funnel at least a little bit from everyone to specifically for this game, right? And then the more you specialize for creators, for the VOD creators and live streamers there, the more you're going to prematurely shrink that funnel. There's more players out there than content creators. And so you want to make sure that with the features that you're creating for content creators, you're not going to turn off a potential rest of your audience as well. Another thing to keep in mind is latency, particularly for a live stream. So there's actually a delay between the streamer broadcasting their experience and the viewer watching it. So folks responding in chat or to like an interaction prompt. So let's say I'm a content creator, I'm live streaming, I'm playing a game, and I ask for chat input. Hey, what should I go and do next? It's going to be a few seconds before that's actually going to get back to me because first off, the me saying that into the screen has to then go to the service, and then from the service, it then has to go to my audience. Then audience members are going to chat back, and that takes some time. That's going to go back through the service, and then again to me as a streamer. And if I wasn't really like watching at that exact moment, right, you're going to get some amount of delay. So if you're looking to do live stream facing features, making sure that you have ways built into your game to account for this latency is really important. Another thing to keep in mind with live stream audience participation is the breakdown of what a live stream audience is actually doing at any given time. So first off, lurkers. That's the bulk of an audience of a live stream, about 75% or so. They're going to be viewing on PC or mobile, maybe their console, though that slice is really small. They're probably busy. So they're probably having this as background noise for themselves. They're passively consuming this content. I actually heard of a guy that was a long haul trucker, and he actually turned Twitch on while he was driving across the United States. He would obviously not play the video part, and he would just have the audio going so that way, he didn't crash his truck. But that type of person is obviously going to stay a lurker, right? Then you're looking at active chat. That's about a quarter of the audience. So folks that are active in chat are generally consuming their live stream, again, sort of while they're multitasking or doing other things, but they're at a computer or on their phone where they're able to type into chat, maybe like take a minute to say hi to folks. And then finally, active player. So these are players that are stream viewers. They're probably already playing a video game and also have their favorite Twitch and YouTuber up, like on a second screen or on their phone. And so they're just sort of like listening again as background noise. And so if a streamer said, hey, I'd love to play with anybody in my audience who's up for it, realistically, you're only going to be looking at about maybe 1% to 2% of that audience that can jump on right then and there to participate. So another thing to keep in mind as a design constraint are pain points actually for a content creator, because obviously this is a part of their motivations. So opportunity. Acquiring viewers is an issue for the majority of content creators. Lower and mid-tier creators, getting exposure is a huge, huge priority, and finding an audience is really difficult. And so I would actually recommend that if you are looking to get content creators to help support your game, looking at low and mid-tier streamers or VOD creators, because they're gonna work really hard for you because they want those opportunities. Then there's balance. Having a reliable revenue stream is really difficult because there's so many variables that go into it. Every day that a creator doesn't make content, they might lose a significant chunk of their audience and therefore their revenue. So finding a work-life balance is really important. If you are coming to content creators and you're like, hey, I would really love it if you did this thing for me for free and like take a day off from streaming or creating VODs to like come out to my studio and do stuff, like keep in mind that they're losing money by coming to help you out. And so think about maybe paying them a day wage. Then there's safety. Security obviously becomes a huge issue for people that are on the internet if you're a public figure. Issues like swatting, doxing, hacked accounts are still very frequent occurrences. If it's a game that encourages playing with a creator, something to keep in mind is consider how they will want to control who, when, and where they're playing with folks. So the likelihood that a creator is going to play with you is on this spectrum. So first off, there are friends and mods. So that's a really highly likelihood that a content creator will want to play with you. I feel like friends are maybe something self-explanatory, that hopefully you know what a friend is. And then what a mod is it's somebody with admin permissions on that particular channel that can edit chat. And it's really important for a live stream to have super good mods that you trust that can basically filter out, like, say, racial slurs or some rando coming out of nowhere telling you you're fat. Like, it's good to have somebody you trust on your side to filter out this negative content. Then a regular. So what's regular? You come to the stream or YouTube channel, comment frequently. People sort of see you all the time and they're like, okay, you're a known quantity. Then descending in terms of trustability, there's paid member. A lot of times regular and paid member tend to overlap, but somebody that has paid for specific content from a content creator, like say access to a Discord channel or those emotes or emojis that I was talking about previously. And then finally, there are randos. These are completely unknown quantities. The content creator has absolutely no idea who this person is. They just sort of like came out of nowhere and are now saying, oh, I want to play with you. The likelihood is pretty slim there. Because at the end of the day, the questions that creators are going to have about the audience features that you're interested in are, will involving the audience be more of a mental load for me? Will involving that audience add entertainment value, or will it be annoying? Because even if I, say, wanted to play with a friend that I trust, maybe they're not the most entertaining person on that stream, right? So like, I don't know if I really want to play with them. Then there's how much power will audience members or new players have over my experience? And then can audience members be heard on my stream? If so, can I trust them to not shout out like horrible racial slurs and get my channel banned? Then there's why will people being heard on my stream be entertaining, even if I trust them? And then finally, will these features help or hurt my bottom line? At the end of the day, audience is how content creators make money, right? And so the way that content creators think about their content is it's the same as any other content you consume, whether it's a video game, whether it's something on Netflix, etc. And so if I am saying, hey, go play my game or go off the platform, making sure that those people come back and aren't hurting a content creator's bottom line is super important. So finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about Stadia exclusive features. These are things that we are really excited to be bringing to our platform as ways to interact with live streamers. Hopefully, folks will like them. So first off, there's click to play. This is pretty simple. Essentially, we are allowing people to create these deep links that they can post on social media or Discord or wherever that will then link back into Stadia as a platform and allow people to directly buy or play a game. Then there's crowd play. So we want to enable YouTube creators to let folks play with them on their channel. Obviously, we want to have filtering mechanics, talking about safety and security earlier. We're really concerned here as well and making sure that our content creators feel safe. So the way that works is essentially a streamer on YouTube can turn on crowd play to help populate their game. So we see this as being something really, really exciting for things like Battle Royale games, actually, because you want to fill that game with all of your friends on your channel. Then there's crowd choice. Again, something we're really excited about, which is allowing a streamer on YouTube to create these live voting polls that will either allow you folks on the dev end to create hooks to change gameplay, to maybe do polling on a narrative-driven game about whether or not I should be the good guy or bad guy in this particular scenario. We think there's all sorts of really fun things that we can do as mechanics here. Then there's state share. So content creators can share specific experiences and items, again, determined by you as the developers with their particular audience. So players will be able to create a 30-second capture video of something and then share that link out on YouTube with these associated states that are determined developer side. Viewers can then click that thing and then it'll launch the game within that snapshot. So this could be really interesting for games with random seeds of like, hey, I played a game, say like a roguelike with this particular random seed, and I want to share this as a challenge with all of my audience members to see if you can beat this better or faster than myself. So we've actually reached the end of the presentation. I hope that you learned something today and that you maybe had a little fun. So here are some takeaways at the end here. Good content creators are experts in curating their brands and making strategic choices on what they play, how they play it, to attract specific audiences. Audiences place monetary value on the content that they enjoy and will happily pay to support their favorite creators. Content creators are gamers first. That happen to play games for a living. So focus on creating a great game first. Again, harder than I say it, right? And keep constraints on potential content creator features in the periphery. So focus on your game, making it for the audience demographic that you're going after, and the things that I spoke of earlier, just sort of like keep it on the sides and think about it and check in from time to time. Is my game readable? Are we looking to index more on creators? And so, hey, let's go take a look at some VOD creators that create, say, Minecraft content. And then finally, be careful to not alienate potential players by tailoring too closely to the content creator market. Again, pay attention to your player funnel. That's it for me. Thank you so very much for watching. And I hope you have a great day.